This might be one of the craziest stories in rap history. The day Machine Gun Kelly did the unthinkable. And actually changed Eminem. Yeah, you heard that right. The same Eminem who ended careers with a single verse. Somehow, someway, MGK made him switch lanes. And it all started with one reckless tweet. One that turned into a decade-long chain reaction that would flip both their lives upside down. Fans still argue about it. Some say MGK woke a sleeping giant. Others claim he cracked something inside M, made him colder, darker, and way more reclusive than before. But what really happened behind the scenes? Because insiders say that after that feud, Eminem didn't just get angrier, he changed completely. From how he recorded, to who he trusted, to how he viewed the entire rap game. And MGK? He went from being an outcast to the man who scarred a legend. So what really went down between these two? What happened in those private phone calls, in those studio sessions nobody talks about, and in those deleted DMs that fans never got to see? Tonight, we uncover the truth behind the headline, How MGK Changed Eminem. It all started with one tweet. A moment of impulse. A few words typed by a hungry 22-year-old rapper who, at the time, was just trying to get noticed. Machine Gun Kelly, still buzzing from his early mixtape days, tatted up and full of confidence, tweeted what he probably thought was harmless at the time. Eminem's daughter Haley is hot as fuck, in the most respectful way possible. But what he didn't know was that this tweet would change his life forever. The internet went crazy. Fans screenshot it, reposted it, tagged Eminem's name like wildfire. Within hours, Detroit and Cleveland, two rap cities with proud histories, were locked in a brewing digital war. Eminem didn't respond at first. He didn't post, didn't tweet, didn't even like a comment. But that silence, that M-level silence, it was scarier than any diss track. Because people who know Eminem say that when he goes quiet, he's not ignoring you. He's studying you. Insiders from Shady Records later claimed M saw the tweet within minutes. He screenshotted it, forwarded it to his manager, Paul Rosenberg, with 3 words, "Who is this?" At the time, MGK was signed to Bad Boy Records under Diddy, a dream come true for him. He'd looked up to Eminem for years, even calling him one of his biggest influences in interviews. But that tweet changed everything. Days later, word spread that Eminem had banned MGK from appearing on Shade 45, M's own radio station. That move alone told fans the beef had quietly started. MGK didn't stay silent. In an interview a few months later, he said, "I didn't mean disrespect, bro. I was just speaking my mind. If you can't handle honesty, that's on you." But that wasn't an apology. It was fuel. And in Eminem's world, every spark eventually turns into fire. Behind the scenes, Eminem's camp wasn't just mad about the comment, they saw it as a violation. A young artist stepping out of line, disrespecting the family name. One Shady Records insider allegedly said, "It wasn't about Haley. It was about principle. You don't mention family. Ever." MGK, however, saw it differently. He felt blackballed, like the industry was closing its doors on him because he spoke the truth. He started dropping subtle jabs in interviews, saying things like, "I guess I'm too real for some people." That some people wasn't subtle. Everyone knew who he meant. Years passed, and both rappers went their separate ways. Or so it seemed. Eminem went quiet, working on new projects. MGK built his image as the loud, rebellious underdog. Wild concerts, tattoos, chaos, the lace-up lifestyle. But deep down, that tension never really disappeared. Then 2018 happened. Eminem dropped Kamikaze, a surprise album that came out of nowhere and sounded like pure rage. Every bar was personal, every verse like a middle finger to critics, haters, and rivals. And buried within it was a name nobody expected to hear again, Machine Gun Kelly. The moment fans caught that line, "And I'm talking to you, but you already know who the fuck you are, Kelly," the internet exploded. Within hours, MGK's mentions were on fire. The man who once tweeted about Haley was suddenly the center of Eminem's wrath. But instead of backing down, MGK did something nobody expected. He fought back. Just days later, he dropped Rap Devil, a direct diss to Eminem, flipping M's own Rap God title against him. The opening line? "Somebody grab him some clippers, his fucking beard is weird." Fans were shocked. Nobody had ever dared talk to Eminem like that. Not in decades. And here's the wild part. MGK's diss was good. Too good, the internet was split. Half said MGK committed career suicide. The other half said he might have just shaken a sleeping legend. That's when things started to change. Insiders from Detroit said Eminem was furious. Not just because of the song, but because for the first time in years, he'd been challenged. A studio engineer who worked on Kill Shot, M's response track, told a source he wasn't joking around. He recorded that track in one sitting. No smiles, no jokes, just venom. When Kill Shot dropped, the world stopped. Lines like, "How you gonna name yourself after a damn gun and have a man bun? And you're just the younger me dressed in women's clothes," instantly went viral. But here's where the real story begins. Because after that battle, both artists changed forever. MGK didn't disappear. Instead, he pivoted. He went from hardcore rapper to pop-punk rock star almost overnight. His fanbase shifted, his image evolved, and his fame skyrocketed. Eminem, on the other hand, became quieter, more isolated. His music got sharper, darker, but his public persona? Colder than ever. And according to people close to him, that wasn't just artistic. It was personal. One source close to Aftermath Records said that battle with MGK, it got under his skin more than anyone admits. It wasn't about losing. It was about realizing the new generation wasn't scared of him anymore. And that realization, they said, changed him. From that moment on, Eminem wasn't just defending his legacy. He was fighting to protect something deeper, his place in a world that had started to move on without him. Meanwhile, MGK wore the scars like a badge. Every interview, every tweet, every tattoo, it was all energy from that one moment. The feud had turned him into something else. Something bigger. He went from being the kid who dissed M to the artist who reinvented himself. And whether people loved him or hated him, they talked about him. Because even in losing the battle, MGK might have won the war. After Kill Shot, the world thought it was over. Eminem clapped back, MGK took the L, and life would move on, right? Wrong, because behind the scenes, Eminem wasn't celebrating. He wasn't bragging, he wasn't even relieved. According to people close to him, he was different. A producer who worked at Aftermath told reporters later, after that MGK situation, M wasn't the same in the studio. He got quieter, more serious. He'd record 10 takes of a single verse and still say, "It's not right." He was chasing something that wasn't there before. For years, Eminem had been untouchable, the boogeyman of rap. But for the first time in decades, people online were debating his dominance. Some fans called him outdated. Others said MGK made him mad again. Either way, people were talking like M was human, and that bothered him. Friends say Eminem started isolating himself after Kamikaze. He'd pull all-nighters in the studio, avoiding calls, ignoring texts. Even his longtime crew, Royce Da 59, Mr. Porter Danon, said they hadn't seen him this focused since the recovery days. Except this time, it didn't feel like passion. It felt like pressure. One Shady Records engineer described a night where M walked into the booth, dropped his headphones, and said, "If people think I fell off because of one kid, maybe I did." That line stunned the room, because M never admitted weakness. Not to anyone. Meanwhile, MGK was living his best life. He was performing Rap Devilette shows, smiling through the boos and cheers, turning the feud into a marketing masterclass. Every interview, every headline, he'd say something slick like, "I don't need to win. I just needed him to respond. Now we're equals." That sentence hit Eminem harder than any diss. Because for a man who'd spent 2 decades building an untouchable legacy, being called someone's equal felt like disrespect. But here's where things got weird. Insiders said that despite the tension, Eminem actually respected MGK on a creative level. A studio insider once revealed, he never said MGK was whack, never once. He just said he picked the wrong one. But in the same breath, he said, at least he rapped. Most these kids can't even do that. Still, that didn't stop the spiral. Fans noticed that M's music became more self-aware. On Music to Be Murdered By, he wasn't just spitting bars, he was dissecting his own flaws, his career, his mortality. He started questioning his legacy, something he'd never done before. And that shift? It all started after MGK. Even industry veterans noticed it. Charlemagne the God said on The Breakfast Club that MGK situation humbled him a little bit. It made him human again. You can hear it in his tone. He's not just rapping from the throne anymore. He's rapping like he's fighting to prove something again. But for Eminem, it wasn't about ego, it was about control. After the feud, he reportedly told Paul Rosenberg, "I let that one slip through the cracks. I ain't ever letting that happen again." He started reviewing everything personally, every collab, every submission, every public statement. Nothing left the Shady camp without his green light. Even features changed. Remember when M used to jump on random tracks with Up and Come? Remember when M used to jump on random tracks with Up and Come? That stopped. He became selective, cautious, some even said paranoid. Meanwhile, MGK was busy reinventing himself. In interviews, he hinted that M inspired his switch to rock. He said, "After all that rap drama, I realized I didn't need anyone's validation anymore. I could be whatever I wanted." That comment got under M's skin too. Not because of the shade, but because it made him reflect. What if he couldn't walk away from rap the same way? What if he was trapped by the very thing that made him great? Those close to him say that question haunted him. M started spending more time alone at his Detroit mansion. He'd sit in the studio for hours with old beats playing, Dre instrumentals, Proof's freestyles, just thinking. According to a friend, he once said quietly, "I miss when it was about rap, not narratives." But MGK had forced a new narrative, one Eminem couldn't control. Then something unexpected happened. In late 2019, MGK dropped Hotel Diablo. It was raw, emotional, and surprisingly honest. Critics called it his best work. And buried in that album was a lyric that caught M's attention. "I spent too long in my shadow. Now I'm my own villain." Sources say Eminem actually listened to that song, alone, several times. One friend said, "He didn't say much. He just nodded and said, 'He's growing.'" That moment changed something in him. Eminem stopped seeing MGK as a threat and started seeing him as a mirror. Both of them were outcasts. Both were misfits who used pain as fuel. And maybe deep down, MGK had forced him to feel again. Because after that feud, Eminem's next projects had something different: vulnerability. Songs like Darkness, Leaving Heaven, and Godzilla weren't just flexes. They were confessions. It was like MGK cracked the armor of the rap god, and beneath it was a man who still wanted to be understood. And yet, the fans didn't stop comparing. Every time Eminem dropped, people asked, "But what about MGK?" Even years later, that name followed him. Proof that one impulsive tweet had left a permanent mark. Still, insiders say M had made peace with it. He once told a producer, "You can't erase a moment like that, but you can learn from it." And that's exactly what he did. The feud didn't destroy Eminem. It refined him. It made him hungrier, sharper, and more self-aware. But it also left scars, the kind of invisible ones you don't brag about in interviews. And those scars would soon shape how he dealt with fame, friends, and even family in ways nobody could have predicted. After the MGK feud died down publicly, Eminem disappeared. Again. No interviews. No appearances. No playful shots. Just silence. But behind closed doors, that silence spoke volumes. Because while fans thought he'd moved on, people close to him said something had changed at home. The feud hadn't just shaken his career. It had rattled his peace. A close friend of Haley, M's daughter, revealed she hated the whole thing. The memes, the jokes, the constant tagging. She told her dad, "Why are people still talking about this?" It got to him. Eminem had always protected Haley from the chaos of fame. But when the MGK situation blew up, Haley's name was dragged into headlines. Again. And that hit M harder than any diss track ever could. People forget. This whole war started because of a comment MGK made about her years earlier. And though MGK later said it was a compliment, Eminem never saw it that way. One insider described a tense night in the studio when M saw an old screenshot resurface online, MGK's tweet about Haley. He froze, just stared at it. Then he said, "This is what people remember more than my albums." You could tell it cut deep. To him, it wasn't about ego anymore. It was about respect. He'd spent 2 decades proving himself to the world, but somehow one viral moment had blurred the line between his art and his life. That's when his inner circle started noticing the distance. Royce da 5 to 9 once mentioned on a podcast, "Am got really withdrawn. You couldn't just pull up to the studio anymore. Everything went through Paul Rosenberg." It was like he was rebuilding a wall around himself. Even 50 Cent, one of his closest allies, tried to lighten the mood. According to people close to the camp, 50 once joked to him, "Bro, if MGK got you thinking this hard, imagine what would have happened if it was Drake." Eminem didn't laugh. He just said quietly, "That's the thing. It's never about the bars. It's about what it brings out of people." That line, "and what it brings out of people," became kind of his mantra after that. He started writing differently. Instead of destroying people in verses, he started dissecting emotions. Tracks like Darkness weren't about beef. They were about reflection. But it wasn't just reflection, it was guilt. Sources close to Shady Records said Eminem sometimes replayed Rap Devil privately, not out of anger, but because he wanted to understand why it connected. He once told a producer, "Maybe people liked it because it made me look human. Maybe I'd been too perfect for too long." And while fans debated who won, Eminem's mind was somewhere else entirely. See, around 2021, word spread that MGK had sent an unreleased message through a mutual contact, not to restart the beef, but to end it quietly. It wasn't a public apology, it was more of a peace offering. According to an insider, MGK's message said something like, "You made me step up. You made me better. I know it went too far, but real recognize real." And here's the shocking part. Eminem actually responded. But not how fans expected. He didn't diss him. He didn't ignore him. He reportedly replied with just 4 words, "All good, stay up." That exchange never hit the internet, until a screenshot leaked months later on a private Reddit thread. The post vanished within hours, but fans were already buzzing. Wait, M and MGK spoke? Did they make peace? Is there a secret collab? The theories went wild. But insiders say M wasn't interested in rekindling the drama. He was interested in closure. He'd already learned what he needed from the feud. In his mind, MGK wasn't an enemy anymore. He was a lesson. And that lesson changed how he dealt with everyone else around him. He became more protective of Haley, even more distant from industry parties, and laser-focused on creative control. Some friends called it growth. Others called it paranoia. One longtime associate said, "It's like he built a fortress around himself. Fame was the world outside, and he was finally okay never leaving." But there was still one part of him that couldn't let go: the artist. Because as much as he tried to move forward, Eminem couldn't ignore that one question that haunted him since 2018. Did MGK really win in a different way? When MGK switched to rock and started topping charts again, M reportedly took notice. He told a friend, "That kid did what most rappers can't. He reinvented." And for the first time, Eminem seemed to respect MGK publicly. In a later interview, when asked about new artists, he said, "I respect anybody who stays true to their art, no matter how it evolves." Fans caught the subliminal. But here's where the story twists again. Because sources say that around this same time, Eminem and MGK almost crossed paths in Los Angeles. Both were reportedly booked to appear at a private industry event in 2022. The organizers tried to keep them apart, but fate had other plans. One guest described it perfectly. They didn't talk long, just nodded. M cracked a small smile. MGK laughed. No words, just mutual respect. It was tense but real. No cameras, no headlines, no staged drama. Just 2 men who'd once tried to lyrically destroy each other, standing in the same room like they'd finally understood something deeper. After that night, Eminem went back to Detroit and recorded what fans later called one of his most reflective verses ever on a leaked snippet. In it, he rapped, "It's crazy how a war can make you see your own reflection clearer than peace ever could." Fans speculated it was about MGK, and maybe they were right, because by now, Eminem wasn't the same man who fired back with Killshot. He was older, calmer, and more self-aware. Not because he lost the feud, but because he learned from it. And whether he admits it or not, MGK had been the spark that reignited something inside the rap. By 2023, the rap world had changed. New faces, new trends, new beefs. Drake and Kendrick were trading subliminals. Kanye was off the grid. And MGK? He was living his pop-punk dream, selling out arenas, smashing guitars, and dating Megan Fox like a real-life rock movie. Eminem, meanwhile, had turned inward. His new music was sharper, more reflective, like a man who'd survived every era and was finally ready to look back. But then, whispers started. It began with a single post on a fan page. A photo that looked blurry, taken from inside a dimly lit studio. 2 figures in hoodies. One tall and lanky. The other unmistakable. Bleach blonde hair and a Detroit fitted. The caption read, "History doesn't repeat, it evolves." Within minutes, Reddit threads exploded. Eminem and MGK in the same studio? No way, that's Photoshop. Bro, if this is real, the internet's about to melt. But according to one LA insider, the photo wasn't fake. In early 2023, MGK and Eminem actually crossed paths again. Not at an event, not on stage, but in a private recording session arranged through a mutual producer. The meeting wasn't planned as a collaboration. In fact, it reportedly started awkward. One witness described it like this. They walked in, barely said a word. M just nodded. MGK looked nervous. Then M said, "So what do you want to talk about?" MGK apparently took a deep breath and replied, "Not talk, create." And that's when everything changed. For the next few hours, the two reportedly exchanged verses, ideas, and even memories of the feud, not as enemies, but as artists. One engineer who was present said, "It was weirdly emotional, like they'd both been carrying this weight for years. You could feel it in the room. Nobody knows what came out of that session, or if it will ever be released. But insiders swear the song was unlike anything either had ever done." One called it the end and the beginning at once. Eminem's verse reportedly touched on legacy, forgiveness, and what it means to face your younger self. MGK's verse, in contrast, was raw, full of vulnerability and defiance, like a man telling his hero, "I became who I am because of you." Neither of them spoke publicly about the meeting. No teasers. No leaks, no Instagram hints. Just silence. But fans noticed something subtle. Weeks later, MGK posted a cryptic tweet. "Forgiveness hits different when you stop trying to prove a point." And a few days after that, Eminem was spotted in Detroit wearing a pink hoodie, something fans joked was MGK inspired. Coincidence? Maybe, but those who knew the story didn't think so. It was clear. The war that had once divided them had turned into a quiet truce, maybe even a mutual respect that both men needed to grow. Because here's the thing, in a world obsessed with beef, sometimes the real plot twist is peace, and both M and MGK had changed because of it. MGK had gone from angry underdog to global rock star, finally earning his own lane where he didn't have to compete with legends. He was one. Eminem, on the other hand, had softened, not in skill, but in spirit. His verses still hit hard, but now they carried something more. Wisdom. One close associate said, "He used to rap like he was fighting ghosts. Now he raps like he's already made peace with them." And that's when fans started realizing something powerful. Maybe MGK didn't just change Eminem's career, maybe he changed his soul. Because before that feud, M was all fire, anger, revenge, and perfection. But after MGK, he started showing cracks, and in those cracks, people saw humanity. It made him relatable again, real again. Not just the untouchable rap god, but the man behind the mic. Even Dr. Dre reportedly noticed. In a private studio meeting, he allegedly told M, "You sound alive again. Maybe it took that fight to wake you up." And M just smiled. Yeah, sometimes you gotta lose a battle to remember why you started fighting. Meanwhile, the internet kept buzzing with conspiracy theories. Did they secretly record a collab? Will it ever drop? Did M ghostwrite for MGK's unreleased project? Nobody knew, but that mystery only made it bigger. Some fans even claimed that MGK's unreleased 2024 demo Phoenix, which leaked briefly before getting taken down, featured Eminem's voice in the background. Producers denied it. But others swore it was him. If true, that would mean the man who once called MGK Stan Jr. had literally helped him record his comeback track. Talk about full circle. But whether they ever released that record or not, one thing's certain, that feud wasn't just a story of destruction. It was transformation. For both of them. Eminem found peace. MGK found purpose. And hip-hop got one of the most unforgettable rivalries in its history. One that reminded everyone that competition isn't about hate. It's about evolution. Because in the end, MGK didn't just challenge Eminem, he changed him. And somewhere in Detroit, behind closed doors, the rap goat himself knows it. So now the question is, did MGK really lose that beef? Or did he win in a way none of us saw coming? Think about it. He forced Eminem, the most feared lyricist alive, to respond, to adapt, to evolve. And in doing so, he reminded M of the one thing fame had almost taken away: the hunger. That's not losing. That's rewriting history. Because let's be real, Eminem's legacy will always be untouchable. But after that feud, he wasn't just a legend looking down on the rap world, he was in it again. And MGK? He proved that even when the whole industry laughs, you can still flip your story into power. So whether you think it was beef, fate, or just lyrical destiny, one thing's clear. Both men walked away changed. Eminem found reflection. MGK found reinvention. And the fans? They got a piece of hip-hop history that'll never be repeated. But what do you think? Did MGK really push Eminem into a new era? Was there a secret track they made together that never dropped? Or is the whole story one big industry cover-up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading every single one. And if you're still watching, that means you're part of the real ones who live for this kind of hip-hop storytelling. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because trust me, the next story, it's even crazier. It's even crazier.